Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Tactical Financial Studios in lovely downtown Phillipsburg, New Jersey, with episode 2 of Politicast. Today, my guest is John K. Buthorn, who is running for District 51 City Council in the South Shore of Staten Island. Welcome, John. How are you?
Good. How you doing today? Thank you.
Hanging in there. Sorry, we got off to a little bit of a late start. We had some technical difficulties here in the studio, as we usually do. I like to make a joke about it and tell everybody we have a Ferrari as a car, but our driver is about 10 years old. Aren't you, Mo?
Yeah, but it's free, so
yeah,
that's you can't argue with the price.
So Politicast, for those tuning in for the first time, is a combination of police and politics. Politicast, it's a lot of the letters are the same. I'm not sure what that's called. Mo, what is that called when you jumble up the letters like that and make a word out of 2 words?
No idea, bro. Now, 890 on my SATs, kid.
Total? Combined?
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah, no kidding.
So Politicast, this is episode 2. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we had on Janine. We call her Just Janine. She's running for Brooklyn Borough President. It was a great show. We had her in studio. John, you're coming to us from Staten Island. You're in Staten Island right now, right?
Yes, I am. I'm in my house at Staten Island.
Where are you on Staten Island? What part? Do you have to live in your district to run in that district, or just be on Staten Island somewhere?
Yes, no, you have to be in the district that you're running for. So I live in Eltingville, Staten Island, the South Shore.
Oh, Eltingville. Yeah, I had a house in Eltingville, and I had one in Great Kills too. So that's District 51?
It is, yes, correct.
Oh, I never really even knew that. Okay. So why don't we get right into it? Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? Give us your background first, and then we'll get into all the politics in a few minutes.
Sure. If you don't mind, if I just wanted to give 1 minute to make mention of something before I start.
Whatever you want to do. The floor is yours.
A lot of your followers might also be fans also and followers of the Finest Unfiltered cast.
Yes.
Podcast. I just wanted to make mention of, a few days ago, one of our brothers in blue, as well as one of my brothers in the Marine Corps, he lost his son Derek to a battle in cancer, and I just wanted to make mention of that and hope everyone has the family in their prayers.
We can actually do a moment of silence if you want.
Yeah, we've been following that story actually as well, and we made a donation from our charity over there. It's a heartbreaking
Yeah, you know
story.
what? We'll take a minute then.
Okay. All right, we're back. All right, John. So why don't we get into then your background? Obviously you're from Staten Island, but a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Born and raised in Staten Island. I grew up in more of the mid-island part of Staten Island, which is the Dongan Hills. 2 brothers, one older, one younger. Sister was also older, and lived a very normal upbringing. I went to a private small Catholic school for grade school, high school, the local public high school that I went to.
Which high school?
Newdorf High School.
Newdorf, okay.
Right. Parents, working class. My mother was a homemaker until we got a little older, and then she went back to school, got her master's degree, and then started teaching. My father was a lifelong worker for the phone company. Went through many different iterations of it at that time. It was 9X, Bell Atlantic, but it eventually was Verizon. So he retired from there after just about more than 30 years. And I just, in high school, was very interested, started getting really interested in getting into police, or thinking that might be my kind of like career calling and career. And once I graduated high school, I actually took a semester off and went to boot camp. I joined the Marine Corps for the reserves. So I did all my training within like a 6-month period. Went to boot camp, combat training, MOS school. Came back, went to the reserves. I was stationed out at Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, New York, and started going to college, John Jay College, which the home of criminal justice. So I was very interested in the studies of criminal justice. Went through that, and I also joined the NYPD Police Cadet Program during that time, which was like a paid internship. You do it part-time during the school year, and then in the summers you did like a full-time employment during the fall. And I worked in the public relations department for that internship, and immediately upon graduation just went right into the police academy, which was the 2001 July class, which eventually the 9/11 class.
Right.
And yeah, so we were in the academy during that time. 9/11 happened. We were just, again, a couple of months into our training, our studies, and we were taken out of the academy, so to speak, for about a month doing traffic. Others did other types of duties where they maybe went to the morgue, stuff like that, and we didn't resume our training till a little over a month later, and our training definitely got delayed. We wound up being like a 10-month academy class, which was kind of crazy because most of them is really around about 6 months. And so, yeah, that was the start of how I got into policing itself and entered the academy. And then from there, just went to Staten Island. I started off in the 120 precinct, which is the North Shore of Staten Island. Did patrol.
My old precinct.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, started off there. It was a good experience. It was, fun. Did normal FTU training. We did this back then. You did a lot of the normal stuff of like, checkpoints, stuff like that, foot posts, and wound up being there for just about a year when my unit then in the Marine Corps for Brooklyn was called up to active duty, which is getting ready for the Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then that's where I was stationed in Kuwait. We were there for about 6 months, from January to about August of 2003, in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And during that time, my military occupational specialty was actually a administrative position, like a supply and logistics. However, at that time, because of the whole fear and threat of nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare, I was actually asked and requested to be a squad leader, as being a non-commissioned officer and serving as a squad leader to a nuclear, biological, chemical decontamination team for the site. So I did training before we left, and we were basically assigned to do that decontamination in the event of an attack, how to decontaminate personnel and equipment, in addition to getting the Marines that were ready were going forward to the combat battle zones, learning how to use their equipment properly and stuff like that. And so, yeah, did that for 6 months, came back, very quickly resumed some time at the 120 precinct before I actually then was transferred to the narcotics division in Brooklyn North, which was again, an incredible experience. Definitely a different side.
Very busy.
Definitely a different side of policing. I think that opens your eyes to a lot of different things going on. I was assigned to the module, which covered the Bushwick area for the most part. But in Brooklyn North narcotics, or in any narcotics division, you get thrown all over the place, different teams and stuff, depending on what's going on or what. So did enforcement all over Brooklyn North, as far as East New York and Bedford-Stuyvesant. And so that was it. And got my shield there, my gold shield, and that's where I kind of then,
What was worse, Bed-Stuy or Iraq?
Well, I would say no.
Just by thinking about it a little bit, you answered the question. No. Bed-Stuy was no joke back then. It's still
Bed-Stuy was no joke.
It's different, a little bit different now. But it was, they didn't call it do or die in Bed-Stuy for nothing.
That's true.
All right, I'm sorry. So then you got your shield, right?
Got my shield, yeah. And because of the contact that I had with the public information, I remember I told you I did my internship there as a NYPD cadet. I actually was able to get transferred there as a detective back to a public relations department. Now as a detective, serving as a media relations officer. Did that study during that time for the sergeant exam. Wound up, passing the sergeant exam, getting transferred right out of my training to the 6-6 precinct in Brooklyn. Only served a very quick stint there, 6 months, and went back as a supervisor to the Public Information Bureau again, and served as a supervisor there for the press relations officers. And at that point, that's when I started to get that itch to really return back to policing, getting out of that world of the media, politics in a sense. And I put in for the bureau, the detective bureau too. And I was all set. I was about to go to the Central Robbery Squad. I had that all set up. And as many are familiar with, when NYPD, when you go to a detective board, you have to get screened by all different bureaus, and the first pick that has the rights to you is Internal Affairs. And so I wound up getting picked up by Internal Affairs, drafted, so to speak, and serving about 3.5 years there. Did 2.5 years in a regular group, which was basic allegations against members of precincts in Brooklyn, and just did regular, again, nothing. It wasn't really anything crazy, missing property complaints.
Yeah.
There were some serious allegations that would come through. It was, for the most part, it was mostly basic. But I did wind up transferring to my last year of that to a special operations division, part of Internal Affairs, which we worked with the federal agencies, DEA, FBI, organized crime within the NYPD, and worked on bigger cases, real cases that involved allegations that were really more confirmed before they even got started. And finished that out until I wound up being picked up by the 122 Detective Squad in Staten Island. Went there, finished out my career there, 3 years, serving as a supervisor for the detectives there. Yeah,
What year did you retire?
2021,
Oh,
January.
21. So you've been out 4 years now. Okay. And then how do you get the bug to then run for a council seat? What made you, that's you're exposing yourself to a lot, and you get it, you went to scrutiny, and it's a thankless job, really. I guess, well, kind of like police. So it's kind of like the same in a way.
That's true. I feel like some of these things that I've been doing are all kind of related in some sense. And when I retired, I knew I had to find something. I was too young. I wasn't going to be retired for forever. And I wanted to enter into the mental health field, actually. So I was very interested in that. And so I went back to school. I got my master's degree in social work. So once I retired, I started schooling. It took me about 2.5 years because that's what the program called for. Completed my 2.5-year master's degree in social work and went right into psychotherapy. I got hired by a private practice here in Staten Island. And the way it works in that field, when you do psychotherapy, you have your license as an LMSW, but you have to do a certain amount of hours. You get over the course of like 3 to 6 years. And once you get those hours, you wind up taking another test. And when you pass that test, you can then become an independent clinical supervisor, social worker, which means that you can open up your own business or work for yourself and bill insurances. And that was my plan. My plan was to do that, get my hours, take that next test, and really find a niche in catering to the population of veterans and first responders and victims of trauma, and places where secondary trauma, like visceral trauma, would be evident, and kind of going that path. And it wasn't until later last year, I guess, that I just kind of saw that, and I knew that this spot was going to be vacant in the sense that the councilman was, ran his 2 terms. And I just felt I kind of felt that way again. Like I feel like I'm sitting on the sidelines, and I want to get into something that I think I could be really useful in and effective in, and just try to learn the process of what I had to do. Didn't have any real mentorship on it. Things in Staten Island kind of went a little haywire with the way this all played out in the past 4 to 5 months, which kind of threw things a little off track for me in the sense of how for it to go. But for the most part, it's definitely a learning process.
When you're saying things went off track in Staten Island, are you speaking about how Joe Borelli left? He took a lobbying job, and then they had this special election, which was actually, it's over now, right? So it was Morano and Casella, and then there was a Democrat too. What's
Cliff Hagan?
Hagan, yeah. Right? A conservative. He's more conservative, or at least they say he is. And I wrote the results down a few minutes ago, or a few minutes before the show. 51% Morano, Hagan 21%, Casella 20%. So what does that mean now? That means, so that was a couple of days ago. The primaries in June. Will all 4 of those people? So obviously Morano goes in as he's the endorsed Republican candidate, right?
Right.
And then you're running as a Republican, right?
Yes.
And then Fasella, so all these people then all run as Republican, and the Hagan is a Democrat. So that's 4 people in the field?
Right. So the way it works is the 4 of us all filed with the petitions and been filed for the ballot. Cliff Hagan is, because he's on the Democratic line now, I don't believe he's being opposed in any way, so he's going straight to the election, general election in November.
Right.
And so the three of us, Griffin Pasella, myself, and Frank Romano, will be on the Republican primary
In June.
June 24th.
Late June, right?
Yes, June 24th. Correct.
So Morano goes in as the endorsed Republican candidate in that primary.
Yes.
So you have a little bit of an uphill battle. Why did is there a reason why you didn't do this special election? Was there what was the strategy behind that?
It wasn't a strategy in the sense that I thought it would benefit me to not be in it. It was more of I wasn't prepared or ready for it. Like I said, the mentorship, I didn't have any in the sense of trying to find somebody who could guide me on the process. And once the resignation of Joe Borelli occurred and the special election was announced, the way that you had to get in your petitions, the signed petitions, the way that you had to kind of be set up for the campaign financing and all that stuff really had to be done in a very short amount of time because it had to be done within, like, say, 2 weeks. Right. So that the special election could be held 90 days from the date of resignation.
Right.
So I just wasn't prepared for that. They threw a loop in the sense of. So
Morano's got the backing of the Republican Party, so it's quick for him to. I mean, he's got the backing. It's a little bit easier for him to get that done. And then Pacella's got the name and the backing. His dad's the borough president,
correct.
Right?
Yep.
So, and then Hagan is also a known guy and has backing as well. So it was just easier for them to get that done and get in there. But you have not plenty of time, but you have time before the primary now to, is there going to be any debate? Because I did see the one debate that they had, the three of them, for the special election, or, primary, whatever you want to call it, special election primary. Is there going to be any debates between the four of you?
If there is any debate, I would imagine it would just be between the Republicans. Like I said, Cliff Hagan would not.
Oh, right. So it
wouldn't benefit him to be in the debate at a point where it's
right.
Three others.
So then the three of you, then, is there any plans for that yet? Or is that something that's going to happen, or,
I hope so, and I'm going to push for it. I don't think there's any plans yet. Like I said, the special election was just this past Tuesday. I'm sure that, Frank himself is just learning what he has to do to get sworn in and stuff like that. So right. not much has been made mention this past few days. But I'm definitely going to push for it. I think that the voters deserve that opportunity to also hear on my side. They've heard them too.
So then, here, not a debate that the two of them are not here. We're not going to do one of those empty seat things. Remember that trick that they did that time for that debate where they just put the empty chair there? But I mean, you have a platform here, you have a voice here. So then can you give us, cite some differences between, say, you and your two opponents? What sets you apart from them or makes you different? Or is it pretty much, are the ideologies mostly the same, or?
I would say that the ideologies are mostly the same. I don't see that there's much difference in how we see the South Shore and what we want for the South Shore. I mean, of course, you can look at my website, you can look at theirs and find little things that might be just different from the way we see things. But for the most part, the vision would be the same. So what separates us, I think of two things that come to my mind. The first is leadership. I think that my experience, my background, Eric Dim from The Finest would always say, he would always use the term pressure tested, it's a great term. I think that's exactly how I feel for myself, that I've been pressure tested. I've been in different areas of the police department and the Marine Corps and working with people and directly in the community as far as with the social work. And I think that I have that leadership ability to walk in on day one and be able to work and kind of command that respect from the council and from other persons that I'd be working with. So that's what I think that separates us. Again, everybody's story is different and everybody can speak on their own behalf as to what their leadership experience could be. From my perspective, I don't see that in the other two individuals as far as, Frank having a radio show, not really being in a leadership position other than an advisory board, being on the community board, and same as Griffin Pasella. Again, being young, first time into it, not really doing anything at the college in the political sphere or the service sphere. Even he basically just went into the financial industries field, and so I just don't see it from them. But again, they could speak on their behalf as to why.
Right. Fair enough. Okay, so then for people that are watching that are not that much into politics or don't understand how it all works. What actually does the city council, as a city councilman, what do you do? What do you have control over? What's your job, essentially?
Yeah. So the city council, I believe, serves an incredibly important function. I think that it's actually a function that many people really fail to realize how influential it really is on our daily life. In this world of national politics and the 24/7 news cycle and things like that, where we watch what's going on at the presidential level, federal level, people know a lot more about what's going on at that level than they actually know what's going on at the local level. And yet most of our, our services, our taxes, the things that we, for quality of life, that they're all really more influenced by our local policies and ordinances and things like that on a daily level. So basically, city council is like the mini Congress, but it's for New York City. So there's 51 districts in New York City, each serving a councilman serving for each district. Each district is broken up into separated by like about 150,000 people that it represents, and those people go to City Hall. They fight and they work with each other to pass new laws. The budget is a huge deal, right? The funding of all our city agencies, and of course the oversight of those agencies. Just like Congress would do on the federal level, there's the committees and subcommittees, and there's supposed to be an oversight, of these agencies to make sure funding is being used correctly and efficiently and effectively. And then there's parts that has to do with more directly with the community. They have district offices, they have constituent services, they help the community find services, take in their problems and mediate those problems either with the agencies and what's going on in the community. And then they also serve as a voice, right? A voice of what the community needs and desires, and using the bully pulpit, so to speak, to really address the needs that the community wants. So they serve a lot of functions, and I think that I hope more people can come to realize that, because especially one of the things that we learned from the special election this past Tuesday is, we had about 8.1 or 2% of the registered voters in the district of 51 actually voted in that special election. So about 9.
I was going to touch on that because so at 51% of the vote versus 21 and 20%, you're like, wow, he destroyed them. He, 51 to 20, but I think if I read it right, only like 9,000 people, maybe might be a little less than that voted.
Yeah, there's 110,000 or so registered voters, of course, all parties.
Right.
And you got around 9 to 10,000 that actually voted that day. And with early voting, again, early voting gives you just about a week,
right,
to go there all day to vote.
And 110,000, but I mean, the South Shore District 51 is, pretty much majority Republican. I don't know the numbers. I probably should. Do you know the breakdown?
Yeah, it's about 40 to 45% registered Republican. I think there's about a little over 50,000 registered Republicans in the district. Okay. So about 40-45%, I would say.
So that means that out of 7,000, those numbers aren't that good. Hopefully the June primary is a little bit different. When you look at those numbers, when you see Hagan at 20%, now he's out of that, right? So now it's right. You, Seller, and Borelli, and if he's got the 51%, and then so really it's going to be a dogfight if people come out and vote. Then,
yeah, and that's definitely what the work is involved for all of us. It's to get out there and really just keep informing the community, to get out and vote. People don't still feel today as if their vote just doesn't matter, and it does.
Especially like you said, on a local level. I feel like people overlook that a lot. And the local for us, I always thought like local level, it's more important because it's the direct effect, like right every day. You know what I mean? It's stuff that happens every day. Do you have any? I'm not sure. I know I saw Sliwa out there somewhere. He backed somebody, right? And
he backed. Yeah, he's with Morano. He backed.
Okay, and then Scott Lebedo. I saw his picture. Yeah, he's always running around on Staten Island. You have any endorsements yet, or no?
I don't. I went for a few interviews for endorsements. Haven't heard anything. Some came back for Frank.
Is that how it works? You have to get interviewed? You go on interviews?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean,
I'm naive to the process. So you have to go sit down with somebody like you're interviewing for a job to say, hey, I'd like you to endorse me. what I were going to do, A, B, C, D, and then they say, okay, we'll get back to you. We'll let you know.
I can only speak as to my experience. That's what I've had to do. I don't know if all persons have to do that interview, but
Okay, all right.
yes. But I think the process is usually that each union, for the most part, has a set political action committee as part of their union, and they do the endorsing and the interviewing and make those decisions as far as
What unions would be involved in, because it's local elections, so what unions would actually be involved in that? Is there any unions that endorse candidates yet or no?
Yeah, pretty much all of them. I mean, all the local, not local, all the agency-wide, unions for the police. So, again, in the NYPD, you have 5, just there between the PBA, DEA, SBA, and so on.
Also, the PBA, SBA, DEA, LBA, all them, they came out and endorsed a candidate already?
Some of them did for the special election. I imagine that it would be the same for the primary. I don't think that they would change it, but
right.
I think the SBA came out for Frank.
Okay.
And I'm not sure who else. I don't think the PBA or the LBA gave any.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Got to back to blue, and you're a blue, and you didn't get that endorsement. Something like doesn't sound good. I think they should have we endorse our own there. So you're obviously a Law and Order guy, and like you said, Frank's radio host, and Vito. Is he a junior? Well, the son. He's a lot younger and starting out in the arena. So I mean, I think you have just as much as good a shot as either one of them does, because you have time to get out there and knock on doors and wish you luck. I mean, it's just politics. Or what made you? Did you really? It's such a tough field to be in, where you open yourself up to so much. Again, just like being a cop, right?
Especially now, it's so cutthroat now. It's gotten vicious. Yeah,
the special election definitely got a little, between the candidates. You saw that. Yeah, no, you're right. You have to be vulnerable to realize what could occur. And I think that's a major factor in what had to be my decision, which was really not just my decision. It has to be the decision of, working, discussing it with my wife and family, in the sense that, you bring everybody into it. You're not bringing just your name is there. You don't want to try and vie for that spot, but
absolutely
you bring everybody into it, into the criticism, and that's something that everyone has to understand before we could really take that step.
I think that's one of the worst parts of politics. You hear it every cycle, no matter what level of government we're talking about. You always hear people say, "Oh, is this the best we have?" Well, no, a lot of the times the best we have wants nothing to do with politics, because just like you're saying, it drags.
Gun shy.
You have like right now you have a peaceful life going on, great family, all that. You want to drag them into that mess because the public is vicious. Almost to a point of just being irrational. They treat candidates on all these levels like they're supposed to be these perfect people, like they never had any life before they wanted to enter public service, and they just drag them and their family over the coals. It chases good people away. It chases people that have great ideas, probably tremendous leadership ability, and they want no part of that political arena because they just don't want to be dragged, and treated unfairly. I mean, the public really, and it's gotten, like I said before, it's gotten so vicious. They're just over the top with that. I give you credit. I really do give you credit.
I think your district that you're in, and I lived in Eltingville and I lived in Great Kills. You have the pedigree for that vote. I mean, for that area, law enforcement, military. The district tends to be a little bit more conservative and a little bit more leaning that way. I mean, I think would be the ideal candidate. Again, I don't know much about Fasella or Marano. I've been off the island for a long time, but I mean, your pedigree tells me that you fit that mold of the people that are the ones that are going to go to the polls. I think it's going to probably come down to how many people go out and vote. Is there any way you have any plans, or is it just going to be, appearing on podcasts and just, ringing any bell that you can to try to draw attention to your campaign to get people to go out there and vote?
Yeah, I think all of that. I mean, as far as much as I can get out there to speak to groups on on a podcast, on a radio station. All of that is important. I think that mostly it always comes down to the door-to-door campaigning, targeted campaigning, trying to really find out who are the people that really show up, who are the ones that vote, consistently in elections, not just presidential every 4 years, or they show up to the elections every year for primaries for the generals, and trying to hit them, try to get to them and really describe my platform and who I am, and just make that connection and see if they make that connection with me also.
Okay. I mean, if you're looking in the camera right now and you're talking to the people that are the ones that are going to go out and vote for you, what's the message, or what do you want to say to them? Because I think I've asked you, every single question that I could have, as far as it relates to, who you are and, what, why you're running. And we've touched on the differences between you and your other candidates. So if you're looking into the camera now and you're talking to the people that are going to go hit the polls, what are you saying to them?
It comes down to, which is what other candidates have said too. My roots are in Staten Island. I've lived here and grown up here. It's all I know, and it's honestly all I want to know. I would love my children to stay on Staten Island. I would love them to grow up with families and also, maintain their roots here. And so, but it doesn't seem plausible at this point. There's an exodus, people going in different, for different reasons, but it all comes down to what's happening on the city level, what's happening with the economy, all these different things. And I just want to be a person who can put everything into it to try to stop that as much as I possibly can on a city council level, working with the council, reaching common ground on stuff. I don't want to speak too much on the other candidates, but that was the second part of what I wanted to say as far as the differences that I feel with them. Is my perspective is trying to reach common ground with them, working with them, not actually being just a voice that seems to always be kind of like fighting and just calling them out and saying that the rest of the city council is so radical and we're never going to get what we want and we're just going to push back on them by yelling and screaming. I actually want to be able. I think that we can reach common ground on many different areas, even across the aisle. Yes, we're not going to get everything we want. Yes, we're not going to get. We're probably not going to get a lot because they have the power dynamic in what it is. It is what it is. But you can reach common ground. You can see things in education and in law enforcement and public safety, or how to help small businesses. The real pillars of our community. We could work and I think reach common ground on to enhance mental health and to expand those services. How do we do these things? If you're willing to work with them and you're not afraid to work with them, you can actually contribute to success in the city and moving the needle, so to speak.
Yeah, the lost art of conversation, right? People don't talk to each other anymore. Everybody's yelling and pointing fingers, and if you're doing that, you're not hearing anything.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, and I feel, again, my experience, my background, my drive and motivation is to do just that. Again, there is nobody that's going to walk into any of those positions and be able to solve every single problem or be able to get everything they want. But I'm not a political person. You can see that in the sense of how I got started and not really know how to navigate the arena. So that's not my priority. I don't have a personal agenda. There's nothing about this that is. I am more of a quiet person that wants to get things done, as opposed to someone who's going to be screening on the.
And so, honestly, some ways not being a political person is actually an advantage. It really is, especially now. I mean, you look all the way across the board, it's trending that way, where society really wants the non-establishment politics. We're over it. We're over it. We've seen what the establishment politicians have gotten us and where it's gotten us. The levels of corruption and just, it's bad. So in a lot of ways, not having that political, background like that is actually an advantage more than a disadvantage.
Yeah, I agree, because listen, I moved on to Staten Island. I left in 2000 and
the year was
2009, I think. I went to Jersey and then, Poconos, Pennsylvania. So obviously I don't have a vote, and I don't know much about Frank and I don't know much about Vito, but I'm talking to you now for almost an hour, And I could say to you, I see me and you a little bit, like in every, just a regular guy. You did your military, you did your police, and I feel a disconnect when I look at most politicians because they talk, and it's like, what do you even like? You just talked for like 25 minutes, and I don't even know what you said. Like there was no substance to it at all. It was a lot of big words and a lot of run-on sentences, and I'm confused more than I was when you started talking, and maybe that's part of the plan.
Yeah.
But this right here, what you just did now, you're just talking like a regular guy, which you are. And I think we need more, like you said, Mo, I think that's an advantage for you. Again, I don't know what the cards hold for you and how people in Staten Island are going to vote and what the turnout's going to be. But if I was voting, I would want an everyday person, especially in that position, right? We're not talking about Congress or Senate, or something on the federal level. We're talking about local, and I would want somebody like you doing that. But we'll see what happens. I don't know what I just did. Did I just disconnect?
Yeah, you definitely just disconnected something.
What did I do?
I don't know. You disconnected something, Mo.
You try to connect back. I don't know what I did.
Oh, there you go.
Am I back? I'm back.
There you are. You're
so
back.
Yeah, so good luck to you. I really appreciate you coming on. If there's anything else that you want to say right before we cut the podcast off, I'll give you the floor one more time. And I wish you nothing but the best. It's refreshing to see a candidate come on and just be, speak freely and not have any sort of like, I don't want to say hidden agenda, but like some other, ulterior motive or something like that. Just a regular conversation, back and forth.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. Again, this is what I need to make sure that others are hearing my stance and my platform. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, there's so many different things we could go through as far as what I would like, but it's preventing really that exodus of Staten Island to, down to Jersey, down south. People, right. we could do a lot. We can prioritize, people like our first responders and maybe look to give them tax breaks, let's say, similar to the way the city does with veterans, based off a sliding scale of how much time they did or, if they're injured and stuff like that. I mean, again, it's not going to solve every problem, but you
right.
give people an incentive to want to stay and just things like that. It's just common sense things that we can come up with to keep people here, to invest in our economy, to grow our families and to stay within the city.
Okay. Sounds good, brother. All right. Listen, good luck, man. And thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, take
All
care.
right, good luck, John.
Thank you.